it strikes me we might just consider there to be three rough divisions of Buddhism, if you were to be interested in Buddhism. First is the type associated with its meditation properties, or mindfulness meditation properties, or what they call sitting. I participated in this for 2 whole years every Saturday morning for 2 hours for 2 years, and found it of minimal benefit, and then dropped it. This might also be termed no thinking, or zone-out type Buddhism, I think, associated, say, with use of a mantra or meditative music, or again, the notion that one should sit and push all thoughts out of the mind. In other words, a practice of avoiding all thinking. Noting, by the way, how this dovetails, I believe strongly, with the thoughts of the cognitive behavioral therapists of America and other. Say Dr. David D. Burns in his book Feeling Good, the new mood therapy, in which he says basically your thinking, or I would say also your words, impact your emotions, including anger and fear. And others, such as in AA, which I've never attended, saying words to the effect that you have stinking thinking, and then the aftermath that follows. There are even those who say you are the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, how would that impact us, if not upon our thinking? And, of course, talk from various channels that your words are very important to your own happiness and how they can impact other people in general, too. That we need to be careful with our words. And, in fact, Evie Pamperis has talked in one video, her having once been a Secret Service agent to a president of the United States, saying you should count yourself fortunate if you, as a policeman or other, carrying a weapon, never have to draw it in 20 years and instead use words as your tools or weapons. That your words are your most powerful weapon thus. And again, your words impacting your level of happiness, especially, I'd say, as to matters of anger and fear. For words can make us very fearful, even what they call paranoid, or I would call a catastrophizer. Hence phrases like, if it bleeds, it reads. You might thus even consider the lower level, I would call it, the first level of Buddhism, to be a distractive mechanism to push out thoughts, to block them, to mask them, to escape them. And then again, in terms of Dr. David D. Burns complaining, or rather illuminating, that our thoughts concern our emotions to follow, well, wouldn't it dovetail then to say, if you stop thinking entirely, you will feel no pain, or minimal pain comparatively. But then, why not just go to bed? Or why not just end your life entirely? Then you will feel no pain, ever. Because you won't be doing any thinking while sleeping unless having a nightmare, or while dead, or brain dead, while alive, like Karen Ann Quinlan, or someone lobotomized for whatever reasons. So maybe that is the first step of Buddhism, to stop thinking as much as possible, or as respites in the day. Kind of like saying, I need a stiff drink to temporarily escape our problems by escaping thinking, dulling it temporarily, if not permanently, like noticing some few Buddhists who meditate almost constantly, even up to 20 or more years in a cave, say, or mountaintop. Now, yes, that might achieve certain levels of serenity by way of not thinking and then no fears and anger coming up, but is that the best solution? For there are those even in scriptures who urge us to be in the world but not of the world. And to be in the world means to be awake and thinking, and experiencing what is going on inside of us and outside of us, not to turn it down on both accounts by isolating from the world impinging upon us and our inner world impinging upon us too as per our thinking, by stopping it by some means, chemical, sleep, or the equivalent, no thinking. Yes, granted, many of our words can be problematic when we think, but then that's a different matter, isn't it? Than simply urging under all conditions not to think and not reform our vocabulary also, which can be quite blameful, anger-laden, and so on, as Dr. David D. Burns and other cognitive therapists talk of when they urge you to have proper thoughts and, in turn, proper words, I'd say. Non-blameful and non-bifurcating, you might say, more complex, more evolved. I think the next step, or mid-level of Buddhism, I would say, is to do thinking and not urge no thinking, and to reform your vocabulary. Yes, so thinking is not causing undue anger, if much of any, undue fears. But this second level associated with conquering the fear of death through claiming you can come back again and again and again, and hopefully at higher and higher levels of overall happiness. When in fact, maybe that is a compromise solution in and of itself. Kind of a midway stage Christianity that says you'll get a big vacation package after death through a heaven or nirvana. In fact, the Buddhism concepts sometimes talk of nirvana or enlightenment in those terms, perhaps. I consider that a mid-stage solution. This time to allowing thinking, and hopefully with a minimum of anger and fear, but not conquering the fear of death. Thus noting one of the most noted Buddhists who wrote 100 books and had a master's degree in theology from Princeton University and was a dissident banned from Vietnam for speaking up about the Vietnam War, Thich Nhat Hanh, if still alive, at least 95 now after a stroke, back in Vietnam, he once said in a book of fear that I wrote, or rather read, in the middle of the book, that the concept of reincarnation, of coming back, has alleviated the fear of many people. Well, why would this be if the fear of death itself, of loss of life, and possible punishment thereafter were not dealt with fully? So many Buddhists, I would say, have not even gotten to the point of dealing with the fundamental question of the fear of death as per, say, what happens afterward. This being addressed, by the way, by Kelvin Chin, C-H-I-N, in his Freedom from Fear of Death Foundation, in his 4 main ways of conquering the fear of death, as per his book. He, a lawyer, has started a foundation and investigation over the years on this fear of death. Noting, too, the Nobel Prize winner around 1960, Ernest Becker, who wrote a blockbuster book, The Denial of Death, and Sheldon Solomon, a professor in Canada, perhaps King's College, discussing this and elucidating it further regarding fear of death, but not discussing, by the way, fear of possible punishment after death. So I believe the mid-stage Buddhists have not conquered this. I would say the most evolved Eastern thinking was in one form I saw by a Mr. Anubhav, who I think may have recently passed away. He had many great shows on YouTube, maybe 30, 40, 50 of them, concerning an advanced concept of acceptance. And I've only seen one person outside of the Buddhists so far talk of this, Reinhold Niebuhr and any predecessors, with the Serenity Prayer, saying that we should change what we can, accept what we can't, and know the difference. The concept of an evolved nature, then, whether Buddhist or other, including Christians, to a very small number perhaps, being acceptance of even death without possible life after death and without undue concern about possible punishment, which nobody can get to the bottom of as to the statistical chances or not of ever happening or being preventable. So I would say the ultimate in life would be to recognize that the concept of acceptance ultimately has to have a part in our lives, even of possible accepting pain after death by whatever means, because we can't possibly rule that out completely on a statistical basis. Even Mr. Chin can't, by claiming, say, that maybe a deity would never want us to suffer after death, or his claiming too, as he does as a resolution, that there's reincarnation. So, it seems to me the Buddhists have maybe at least three main levels of development, the top one being acceptance, and that as found in smaller numbers by far, and hence you'll see very little talk at those circles of reincarnation. If spoken of at all, perhaps they don't even believe in it themselves and are simply saying so to comfort those who have yet not gotten to that point that they have, as a way station to comfort the pains of life.